Where is my son? Richard Dalton's voice cracked as he screamed into the empty house, his fist slamming into the nursery door hard enough to splinter the wood. Blood smeared across the white paint. He didn't care. The crib was empty, stripped bare. Not a blanket, not a toy, nothing. He spun around, chest-heaving, and saw it on the kitchen counter downstairs, her wedding ring glinting under the cold morning light like a knife. His wife Sarah was gone. His 3-month-old baby was gone. $200,000 gone, and he was standing there still smelling like another woman's perfume, realizing too late that the quiet wife he'd ignored had just destroyed him. Before we go any further, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now and stick with me until the very end of this story, because what happens next will absolutely shock you. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Richard stood in his kitchen staring at that ring like it was a grenade. His hands started shaking. Not from fear, from rage. How dare she? How dare his wife, quiet, predictable Sarah, do this to him? He grabbed his phone and dialed her number. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same thing. Third time. Fourth. Fifth. Each beep felt like a slap. He called her mother in Boston. The phone rang 4 times before Margaret's sleepy voice answered. "Richard, it's not even 7 in the morning. Is Sarah there?" Silence. Then carefully, "Why would Sarah be here?" "Don't play games with me, Margaret. She's gone. She took Ethan. Is she with you or not?" "Gone. What do you mean, gone?" "I mean she cleared out the house like a thief in the night, took my son, drained our accounts. So I'll ask you one more time, is she there?" Margaret's voice turned to ice. "Our accounts. Last time I checked, Sarah worked 60-hour weeks at that marketing firm before Ethan was born. And no, Richard, she's not here. But if she left you, I can't say I'm surprised." He hung up on her. His mind raced. This wasn't possible. Sarah didn't have the spine for something like this. She was the woman who apologized when other people bumped into her. The woman who said, "It's fine," when he forgot their anniversary 3 years running. The woman who never questioned where he went or who he was with because she was too busy being the perfect little wife. He dialed his lawyer, Marcus Chen, who answered on the second ring, sounding alert despite the hour. "Richard, what's wrong?" "Sarah's gone. She took Ethan. I need you to file emergency custody papers immediately. Today. This morning." "Slow down. What do you mean she's gone?" "I came home and they're both gone. She emptied the house. This is parental kidnapping, Marcus. I want her arrested." Marcus paused. "Where were you last night?" "What does that have to do with anything?" "Richard, if you want me to help you, I need the truth. All of it. Where were you?" Richard's jaw clenched. "I had a business meeting in Portland. I stayed overnight. When I got back this morning, they were gone." "Business meeting? At a hotel?" "Yes. Alone." The silence stretched too long. "Marcus, just file the damn papers. I'll make some calls." But Richard listened to me very carefully. "If there's anything you're not telling me, anything at all, it will come out. And when it does, it will destroy your case. So I'm asking you one more time, is there anything I should know?" Richard looked at the wedding ring on the counter. "No, nothing. Just find my wife and son." He hung up and immediately called the police. The dispatcher transferred him to a detective named Holloway, whose voice sounded like gravel and skepticism mixed together. "Mr. Dalton, you're reporting your wife and infant son missing." "Yes. I came home this morning and they're gone. All her things are gone. This is kidnapping." "When did you last see them?" "Yesterday morning around 7. "And you've been where since then?" "Portland, business trip." "Can anyone verify that?" Richard's stomach tightened. "My associate can verify the meeting." "I'll need a name and number. Now, Mr. Dalton, has your wife given any indication she was planning to leave? Any arguments? Financial stress? Postpartum depression?" "No, nothing. Everything was fine." "Everything was fine, but she packed up your entire house and disappeared with your 3-month-old baby." "I'm telling you, this isn't like her. Something's wrong. Maybe someone took her. Maybe she's being forced." "Uh-huh. And she managed to pack all her belongings while being forced. Mr. Dalton, I'm going to be straight with you. This doesn't sound like an abduction. This sounds like a woman who left. Then find her and bring her back. We'll open a case, but I'm going to need you to come down to the station. There are some questions I need to ask face to face." Richard slammed the phone down. His reflection stared back at him from the darkened kitchen window. Expensive haircut, tailored shirt face of a man whose carefully constructed life was crumbling. He pulled up his bank app again. Their joint savings account, 0. Their joint checking, 0. But that wasn't possible. There should have been over $200,000 in there. Money from his last 3 commission checks. Money from Sarah's inheritance when her father died. All gone. He called the bank. After 20 minutes of automated menus and hold music, a representative confirmed what he already knew. Electronic transfers had been made over the past 2 weeks. Small amounts at first. $5,000 here, $7,000 there. Then bigger chunks. $40,000, $60,000. All transferred to an account he didn't recognize. I need those transfers reversed immediately. This is fraud. Sir, the transfers were made with the correct login credentials and 2-factor authentication. If you believe your account has been compromised, you'll need to file a police report and bring it to a branch. My wife stole that money. Is your wife an authorized user on the account? Yes, but then those weren't unauthorized transfers, sir. That's a civil matter between you and your wife. The bank can't intervene. He hung up and threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. Screen cracked. Good. He needed to break something. He walked through the house, room by room, cataloging the damage. She'd taken her clothes, but left his. Taken all of Ethan's baby things, the crib, the changing table, the boxes of diapers, the tiny clothes Sarah had folded so carefully. The nursery was completely empty except for the pale blue paint on the walls. In the master bedroom, she'd cleared out her nightstand. He opened the drawer where she used to keep her journal, her reading glasses, her hand cream. Empty. He checked the bathroom. Her toothbrush was gone, her makeup, the expensive shampoo she special ordered, even the bathrobe that used to hang on the back of the door. But in the trash can, underneath the tissue, he found something. A receipt from a storage facility in Tacoma, dated 3 days ago, Unit 247, monthly rental $150. She'd been planning this. His phone buzzed, the cracked screen still worked. A text from Vanessa. Last night was amazing. When can I see you again? He stared at the message. Vanessa Cole, 28 years old, long dark hair, legs that went on forever. He'd met her at an open house 6 months ago. She'd been looking for investment properties. He'd been looking for a distraction from Sarah's constant exhaustion and the baby's endless crying. 1 drink had turned into 2. 2 had turned into a hotel room. Hotel rooms had turned into a pattern. Last night they'd celebrated her closing on a downtown condo, champagne at the Space Needle, dinner at Canlis, a suite at the Four Seasons. He told Sarah he had a client meeting in Portland. She'd barely looked up from nursing Ethan when he'd kissed her goodbye, and now she was gone. He texted Vanessa back. Something came up. I'll call you later. Then he grabbed his car keys and drove to the police station. Detective Holloway was exactly what Richard expected. Late 50s, tired eyes, cheap suit, wedding ring, worn thin from years of wear. They sat in a gray interview room that smelled like coffee and institutional cleaning products. Mr. Dalton, thank you for coming in. I've started a preliminary investigation into your wife's whereabouts. And I have some questions. You said you were in Portland yesterday for business. What kind of business? Real estate. I'm a partner at Dalton & Associates. We handle commercial properties. Who did you meet with? A potential client. Development group looking at warehouse space. Name. Richard shifted. The meeting didn't pan out. We didn't end up working together. So there's no one who can verify you were in Portland on business. I have emails, communications. I'd like to see those. Holloway pulled out a file. Mr. Dalton, I pulled your wife's phone records. She made several calls in the past 2 weeks to a number in Chicago. Do you know anyone in Chicago? No. The calls were long, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, some late at night. You didn't notice your wife having extended phone conversations. I work long hours. I'm not home every night. Right. You were in Portland. Holloway's eyes didn't blink. Except your credit card shows charges at the Four Seasons in Seattle. Last night. Room service for 2. Champagne. Richard's face went hot. I can explain that. Please do. I wasn't in Portland. I was with someone. But that has nothing to do with Sarah leaving. Doesn't it? Your wife finds out you're cheating, she takes your kid and your money and leaves. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Sarah didn't know. She never knew. You sure about that? Richard wasn't sure about anything anymore. Had she known? Was that why she'd been so quiet these past few weeks? He'd thought it was postpartum exhaustion. All those baby books said new mothers were tired, emotional, not themselves. He'd given her space, stayed out of her way, let her handle Ethan while he focused on work and Vanessa. But what if she'd known all along? Holloway slid a photograph across the table. Recognize this woman. Richard looked at the photo. Blonde hair, sharp features, mid-30s. No. Who is she? Emily Thorne. Ring any bells? Never heard of her. She and your wife went to college together, lost touch after graduation. But guess whose number shows up in your wife's call log starting 3 weeks ago? Emily Thorne's. So Sarah called an old friend. So what? Emily Thorne has an interesting background. Identity fraud, check kiting. She served 18 months in federal prison 5 years ago. Got out, moved to Chicago, supposedly went straight. And now your wife is missing, your money is gone, and Emily Thorne's phone number is all over Sarah's records. Richard's mind raced. You think this woman helped Sarah steal from me? I think your wife had help. I think she planned this carefully. And I think you're not telling me everything. Holloway leaned forward. Here's what I know for sure. Your wife isn't missing. She left. She took your child legally because she's his mother. She took money from a joint account, which is legal. And you're sitting here lying to me about where you were last night, which makes me wonder what else you're lying about. I want my son back. Then you should have thought about that before you spent the night with your mistress. Richard stood up. Are we done here? For now. But Mr. Dalton, a word of advice, get a good lawyer, because when we find your wife and we will find her, this is going to get ugly. Richard drove home in silence. The house felt bigger now, emptier. He poured himself a drink and sat in the living room where Sarah used to nurse Ethan in the middle of the night. He'd watch them sometimes from the hallway, her humming softly while the baby fed. He'd never told her that he watched, never told her that sometimes in those quiet moments he felt something close to regret. His phone rang. Marcus, I filed the emergency custody petition, but Richard, we have a problem. Sarah filed first. What? She filed for divorce and full custody 3 days ago, in Montana. She established residency at an address in Helena. The papers were just served to your office an hour ago. Montana? She doesn't know anyone in Montana. Apparently she does now, and her filing includes some allegations I need to ask you about. She claims adultery, financial abuse, and emotional abandonment. She's requesting full custody child support and half of all marital assets, including your partnership's stake in the firm. Richard's hands went numb. This is insane. Is any of it true? We're married. Everything I have is half hers anyway. This is just revenge. What about the adultery? Silence. Richard, I can't help you if you lie to me. Fine. Yes, there was someone, but Sarah has no proof. She has hotel receipts, credit card statements, text messages. She subpoenaed your phone records, Richard. She has everything. How did she get all of this? Because she's been planning this a lot longer than you realize, and now you're playing catch-up. Marcus paused. I have to ask, do you want your son back because you love him or because you don't want to lose? Richard looked at the empty nursery down the hall. He tried to remember the last time he'd held Ethan. Really held him, not just for a photo or when Sarah handed him over for 5 minutes. He tried to remember his son's laugh, his cry, the way he smelled after a bath. But all he could see was Sarah's face the day Ethan was born, exhausted and radiant, and looking at Richard like he was supposed to say something important. He'd checked his email instead. Both, Richard finally said. I want him back because he's mine. That's not good enough. The judge will see right through that. You need to want him because you're his father. I am his father. Then start acting like it. Marcus hung up. Richard sat in the darkness of his empty house and realized for the first time that he didn't actually know his son's middle name. Sarah had chosen it, something from her family. Edward Edmund. He couldn't remember. He'd been on his phone during the conversation, closing a deal, while she'd filled out the birth certificate paperwork. Ethan, something Dalton. His own son, and he didn't even know his full name. He picked up the wedding ring from the counter and turned it over in his hands. Inside the band, an inscription, "Forever starts today." He'd had it engraved the week before their wedding, back when he still believed in forevers, back when Sarah looked at him like he hung the moon, instead of like he was just another obligation to manage between feedings and diaper changes. When had that changed? When had her smile become tired? When had her eyes become empty? He couldn't pinpoint the moment. It had been gradual, a slow fade from vibrant to gray, and he'd let it happen because it was easier than asking what was wrong, easier than being present, easier than being the man she'd married instead of the man he'd become. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "Hello?" "Stop looking for me." Sarah's voice, quiet, steady, nothing like the woman he thought he knew. "Sarah, where are you? Where's Ethan?" "He's safe. We're both safe. And that's all you need to know." "You can't do this. You can't take my son." "Our son. And yes, I can. I already did." "I'll find you. Marcus already knows you're in Montana. The police are looking for you. You can't run forever." "I'm not running, Richard. I'm done. There's a difference." "What does that mean?" "It means I stopped waiting for you to choose us. I stopped believing your excuses. I stopped pretending that you were ever going to be the husband and father you promised to be. I provided for you. I gave you everything." Her laugh was bitter and broken. "You gave me money. You gave me a house. You gave me loneliness and humiliation and the privilege of raising our child alone while you were out with her. I don't know what you're—" "Don't. Don't you dare lie to me anymore. I know about Vanessa. I've known for months. I know about the hotels and the restaurants and the late nights that had nothing to do with work. I know everything, Richard, and I'm done pretending I don't." His chest felt tight. "If you knew, why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was too busy planning my exit." The line went dead. Richard stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear, even though Sarah had hung up 30 seconds ago. His hand trembled. She knew. She'd known for months. While he was lying about Portland, she was draining their accounts. While he was with Vanessa, she was planning her escape. While he thought he was in control, she was 3 steps ahead. He dialed her back, straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. He tried 5 more times, each attempt making him angrier, more desperate. On the 6th try, he left a message. "You want to play games, Sarah, fine, but you're not taking my son. I don't care what you think you know or what you think you're doing. Ethan is coming home, and when I find you, and I will find you, you're going to regret this." He hung up and immediately regretted the words. Threatening her on voicemail. Marcus would kill him. The police would use it against him, but he was beyond caring about optics. His wife had stolen his child and his money, and everyone was treating him like the villain. His phone buzzed. Vanessa again. "Richard, you're scaring me. What's going on? Call me." He started to type a response, then stopped. Vanessa was a problem for later. Right now, he needed information. He opened his laptop and searched for private investigators in Seattle. The first 3 websites looked cheap template designs with stock photos. The 4th one was different. Clean, professional. Kieran Vance Investigations. 20 years experience, specializes in family cases. Richard called the number. A woman answered. "Vance Investigations." "I need to speak with Kieran Vance. It's urgent. Mr. Vance is with a client. Can I take a message? Tell him Richard Dalton is calling. Tell him my wife kidnapped my son and I need him found today." There was a pause. Keys clicking. "Hold, please." 30 seconds later, a man's voice came on the line. Deep, calm. The voice of someone who'd heard every story twice. "Mr. Dalton, this is Kieran Vance. You said your wife took your son." "Yes. This morning. I came home and they were both gone. She cleaned out our bank accounts. Over $200,000. The police won't help because technically she didn't break any laws. But I know she's in Montana and I need her found." "How do you know she's in Montana?" "My lawyer told me. She filed for divorce there 3 days ago." "And where were you when she left?" Richard hesitated. "Does that matter?" "It always matters. If you want me to help you, I need the whole picture. Not the version you tell yourself at night. The truth." Richard closed his eyes. "I was with someone else, another woman. My wife found out." "How long has the affair been going on?" 6 months. Maybe 7. Does your wife have family in Montana? No. She doesn't know anyone there. That's why this doesn't make sense. Sarah's not the type to just disappear. She's quiet, predictable. She doesn't take risks. Kieran laughed, but there was no humor in it. Mr. Dalton, the woman you're describing, doesn't exist. The woman who took your son is smart, organized, and angry enough to burn down everything you built together. That's not predictable. That's dangerous. Can you find her or not? I can find her, but it's going to cost you. My retainer is $10,000 plus expenses. Fine, whatever it takes. I'll need access to your financial records, phone records, emails, everything. And Mr. Dalton, one more thing. When I find her, what exactly are you planning to do? Get my son back. Legally or otherwise. Richard's jaw tightened. Whatever it takes. That's what I thought. I'll send over the contract within the hour. Kieran hung up. Richard sat back in his chair and tried to think clearly. Sarah was in Montana. She had help from this Emily Thorne woman. She'd been planning this for weeks, maybe longer, which meant she'd been lying to him the entire time, smiling at breakfast, kissing him goodbye, acting like everything was normal while she plotted her exit, just like he'd been doing with Vanessa. The thought made him sick, not because of the hypocrisy, because he was losing. His phone rang. Unknown number again. He answered immediately. Sarah. No. A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. Cold. This is Emily Thorne, Sarah's friend, the one you've never heard of. Richard's pulse jumped. Where is she? Safe, which is more than I can say for where she was with you. Put Sarah on the phone. She doesn't want to talk to you. That's why I'm calling. To tell you to stop. Stop calling. Stop threatening. Stop acting like you have any rights here. I have every right. Ethan is my son. Really? When's his birthday? What? Simple question. When was your son born? Richard's mind went blank. July. Something. Early July. The 7th, the 9th. That's what I thought, Emily said. You don't even know your own kid's birthday, but you want custody. You want to drag Sarah through court and take away the only person who's ever actually cared about that baby. I'm his father. Biologically, sure. But you've never been a dad. You've been a paycheck. And not even a faithful one. How much did Sarah tell you? Everything. About Vanessa. About the hotels. About how you left her alone every night while she was drowning in postpartum depression, crying into a pillow so she wouldn't wake the baby. About how you never once asked if she was okay. Richard stood up, pacing. Sarah never said she was depressed. Because you never asked. You want to know the last conversation you had with your wife. Real conversation, not you barking instructions while checking your phone. She doesn't remember either, because it's been that long. Where is she, Emily? Somewhere you'll never find her. I already know she's in Montana. Emily laughed. Montana was a misdirection. The divorce filing was strategic. You really think Sarah would make it that easy? You don't know her at all. The line went dead. Richard threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor screen, completely shattered this time. He kicked the couch, swept his laptop off the desk, grabbed the whiskey bottle and threw it at the fireplace. Glass exploded. Amber liquid splattered across the white walls. And then he heard it. A car door slamming outside. He ran to the window. A black sedan sat in his driveway. Detective Holloway stepped out, along with a younger detective Richard didn't recognize. They walked toward his front door with the slow, deliberate pace of people who weren't in a hurry because they knew he wasn't going anywhere. Richard opened the door before they could knock. Detective? Mr. Dalton, this is Detective Rivera. We have some follow-up questions. Can we come in? Do I have a choice? You always have a choice, but it'll look better if you cooperate. Richard stepped aside. They walked into his destroyed living room. Holloway's eyes scanned the broken glass, the overturned furniture, the hole in the wall where Richard's fist had connected earlier. Rough morning, Holloway asked. What do you want? To talk about your wife and Emily Thorne. I don't know Emily Thorne. That's interesting because she knows a lot about you. We pulled her phone records. 43 calls with your wife over the past 3 weeks, some lasting over an hour. You really expect me to believe Sarah was planning all of this, and you had no idea. I work 60-hour weeks. I'm not home watching her make phone calls. Detective Rivera spoke for the first time. Where were you working last night, Mr. Dalton? I already told you, I was at a hotel. With Vanessa Cole. Richard's stomach dropped. How do you know her name? Because we talked to her this morning. She confirmed you spent the night together. She also confirmed this wasn't the first time. She gave us dates, locations, receipts. She was very cooperative. You had no right to drag her into this. We had every right, Holloway said. Your wife is missing. Your son is missing. And you lied to us about your whereabouts. That makes you a person of interest. I'm not a suspect. I'm a victim. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you look like a husband who got caught cheating and is now trying to punish his wife by using the legal system to take her child. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Richard's hands clenched into fists. It's about my son, about getting him back where he belongs. With you, a man who doesn't know his own kid's birthday, who spends his nights with his mistress while his wife raises their baby alone. How I spend my time is none of your business. It is when it's relevant to the case. And Mr. Dalton, it's very relevant. Holloway pulled out a folder. We subpoenaed your credit card statements. Hotel charges every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 months. Always the same hotel. Always charged to a room under Vanessa Cole's name. You were systematic about it, careful, except you weren't careful enough. What's your point? My point is that your wife knew. She knew exactly what you were doing, and she documented everything. Bank statements, credit card records, photos. She hired her own private investigator 2 months ago. She has pictures of you and Vanessa, timestamps, locations. She built a case against you while you thought she was home baking cookies and changing diapers. Richard felt the floor shift under him. That's impossible. Sarah doesn't have that kind of money. She didn't, but her friend Emily did. And Emily has experience making people disappear, including herself. She served time for identity fraud, Mr. Dalton. She knows how to create new lives for people, new names, new social security numbers, new everything. So arrest her. For what? Helping a friend leave an abusive marriage. I never abused Sarah. Neglect is abuse. Infidelity is abuse. Making someone feel worthless in their own marriage is abuse. You might not have hit her, but you hurt her. And now she's gone. Rivera stepped forward. Mr. Dalton, we're not here to judge your marriage. We're here to find your wife and son and make sure they're safe. If you know anything about where Sarah might go, anyone she might contact, now is the time to tell us. Richard shook his head. I've told you everything I know. Have you? Holloway tilted his head. Because Vanessa Cole told us something interesting. She said you talked about Sarah sometimes, about how she was distant after the baby, how she wasn't the same woman you married, how you felt trapped. I never said that. She recorded some of your conversations. Did you know that? Richard's blood ran cold. What? Vanessa kept insurance, voice memos on her phone, just in case things went south. And in one of those recordings you said something very specific. You said you wished Sarah would just disappear so you could start over. Your exact words. I was drunk. I didn't mean it. Drunk words are sober thoughts, Mr. Dalton, and now your wife has disappeared, which makes us wonder if maybe she had good reason to run. I didn't threaten her. I never touched her. But you wanted her gone, and now she is. Convenient, isn't it? Richard's lawyer, Marcus, burst through the front door, briefcase in hand, face flushed. That's enough. Richard, don't say another word. Holloway smiled. Good timing, counselor. We were just leaving. But Mr. Dalton will be in touch. Don't leave town. The detectives walked out. Marcus waited until their car pulled away before turning to Richard. What the hell were you thinking talking to them without me? They just showed up. So you call me. You don't answer questions. You definitely don't threaten your wife on voicemail. I got a call from the prosecutor's office an hour ago. They have your message, Richard, the one where you said she'd regret leaving. I was angry. Angry gets you arrested. They're building a harassment case, possibly stalking. If you contact Sarah again, they'll charge you. So what am I supposed to do? Just let her keep my son. You fight this in court, legally. with evidence and lawyers and a judge, not with threats and private investigators and whatever else you're planning. I hired Kieran Vance. Marcus closed his eyes. Of course you did. Richard Vance is good, but he's also expensive and he doesn't always play by the rules. If he finds Sarah and something goes wrong, you're liable. You understand that? I understand that my wife stole my child and everyone is acting like I'm the criminal. Because right now, legally, she hasn't done anything wrong. She's a mother who left with her infant son. That's not kidnapping. That's not theft. That's a woman exercising her parental rights. What about the money? Joint account. She had every right to withdraw it. You might get half of it back in the divorce settlement, but that's a civil matter, not criminal. Richard sank onto the couch. So I have no options. You have options. They're just not the ones you want to hear. You cooperate with the police. You stop threatening Sarah. You show up to court looking like a remorseful husband who made mistakes and wants to make amends. You prove you can be a good father. I am a good father. Marcus stared at him. Richard, be honest with yourself for 5 seconds. When's the last time you changed Ethan's diaper? Silence. When's the last time you fed him, played with him, got up with him in the middle of the night? More silence. That's what I thought. Sarah has been a single parent for 3 months while you've been living like a bachelor. The judge is going to see that. The custody evaluator is going to see that. And unless you can prove you're more than a paycheck, you're going to lose. So what do? You start acting like a father. But first you need to tell me the truth about Vanessa. All of it. Because if there's anything else she recorded, anything else that can hurt us, I need to know now. Richard's phone buzzed on the floor. He picked it up, careful of the shattered screen. Email from Kieran Vance. Subject line, found her. Richard opened it. 3 attachments. The first was a photo of a small cabin in the woods. Snow-covered roof. Surrounded by pine trees. Middle of nowhere. The second was a property record. Owned by a shell corporation. Registered in Wyoming. Rented 3 weeks ago. Cash payment. The third was a map. Red pin dropped on a location in Montana, about 40 miles outside of Bozeman. Kieran's message was brief. Confirmed sighting. Sarah, an infant matching description spotted at local grocery store yesterday. She's using the name Jennifer Martin. Black Honda CRV Montana plates. Emily Thorne's name is on the rental agreement. They're not hiding well. I can have eyes on the location within 6 hours. What do you want me to do? Richard looked up at Marcus. Kieran found her. Richard, no. Whatever you're thinking, don't. I'm thinking about getting my son back. Through legal channels. We file an emergency motion. We get the local police involved. We do this the right way. The right way takes weeks, months. By then she'll be gone again. Or you go up there yourself and get arrested for trespassing harassment or worse. Is that what you want? To lose everything because you couldn't wait for the system to work. Richard stared at the photo of the cabin. Sarah was in there right now, with Ethan, his son, living some fantasy life where she got to play victim while he was the villain, all because he'd made a few mistakes, all because he'd needed something she couldn't give him anymore. He typed a response to Kieran, "Keep watching. I'm coming up there." Marcus grabbed his arm. "Richard, listen to me very carefully. If you go to Montana, if you confront Sarah, if you do anything that even looks like intimidation, you will lose your son forever. Not temporarily, forever. The court will see you as unstable, violent a threat. Is that what you want? I want my family back. Your family is gone. Sarah made sure of that. Now you have 2 choices. You can accept it and try to salvage some kind of relationship with your son through custody arrangements, or you can fight dirty and lose everything. There's no third option." Richard pulled his arm away. "You're fired." "What?" "I said you're fired. Send me your final bill." "Richard, don't do this. Get out of my house." Marcus stood there for a long moment, then shook his head. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." "Wouldn't be the first time." Marcus left. Richard was alone again in his destroyed living room with nothing but a photo of a cabin and a plan forming in his mind. He called Kieran back. "I need you to watch the cabin. 24 hours. I want to know everyone who comes and goes. I want to know their routine. And I need you to find out if there's a back entrance." "Mr. Dalton, what exactly are you planning?" "I'm planning to get my son back. The legal way or the other way?" Richard looked at the wedding ring still sitting on the counter. He picked it up and squeezed it so hard the metal cut into his palm. Whatever way works. Richard booked a flight to Bozeman, leaving in 4 hours. He threw clothes into a duffel bag without thinking about what he was packing. Shirts, jeans, his phone charger. Nothing else mattered. He was halfway to the door when his phone rang. Vanessa. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Richard, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day. The police came to my office. They asked me about us, about our relationship. I didn't know what to say. So, you told them everything? I had to. They said I could be charged with obstruction if I lied. They had hotel records, Richard. They already knew. You recorded our conversations. Silence on the other end. Then quietly. How did you know? The police told me. Voice memos. Vanessa, really. I was protecting myself. You're married. I needed insurance in case your wife found out and came after me. Well, she found out. And now she's gone. And the police think I had something to do with it. Did you? The question hit him like a slap. Are you serious right now? I don't know what to think. You said things, Richard, when you were drunk, about wanting to start over, about Sarah being in the way. I never said that. You did. You said if Sarah wasn't around, we could be together. You said you wished she would just disappear. Richard's grip tightened on the phone. I was venting. I didn't mean it literally. Then where is she? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. The police said she took your son and all your money. They said she planned it for weeks. Richard, what did you do to her? I didn't do anything. This is Sarah's revenge for the affair. She's trying to destroy me. Or she's trying to survive you. The line went dead. Richard stared at his phone. Even Vanessa was turning on him. The woman he'd risked everything for, and she was acting like he was some kind of monster, like he'd driven Sarah away, like this was his fault. He grabbed his bag and headed for the door. His phone buzzed again. Text from Kieran. Update subject left cabin at 2:47 p.m., drove to town, post office and pharmacy, returned 4:15 p.m., one adult female visible, infant confirmed in back seat. Second female matches. Emily Thorne description arrived at cabin 5:30 p.m. driving separate vehicle. Both cars still on property. Advise you do not approach alone. This could go sideways fast. Richard texted back, I'm on my way. Keep watching. He drove to the airport going 20 over the speed limit the whole way. His mind raced faster than the car. What was he going to do when he got there, knock on the door and ask nicely for his son back, call the local police and hope they'd help, or do what he really wanted to do, kick the door down and take what was his? At the airport, he checked his bag and made it through security with 10 minutes to spare before boarding. He bought a coffee he didn't drink and sat at the gate trying to look normal while his insides twisted into knots. Around him, families traveled together, a young couple with a baby, an older man reading a newspaper, a woman on her phone laughing at something. Normal people living normal lives. Richard used to be normal, used to have a wife and a kid and a house and a career. Now he had nothing but a plane ticket and a plan that would probably land him in jail. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Dalton, this is Detective Holloway. Where are you right now? Richard's heart stopped. Why, because I have a warrant for your arrest if you don't answer the question. Where are you on Seattle? At home. Don't lie to me. I can hear the airport announcement in the background. Where are you going? Richard closed his eyes. Montana. To do what? To see my son. No, you're going there to confront your wife. Maybe worse. Mr. Dalton, I'm ordering you to turn around and come back to Seattle immediately. If you get on that plane, I will have you arrested the second you land. On what charges? Violating a restraining order. What restraining order? The one Sarah filed this morning. Emergency protective order. You're not allowed within 500 feet of her or your son. You didn't get served yet because you've been running around playing vigilante. But the order is active. And if you show up at that cabin, you're going to jail. Richard stood up pacing. Other passengers stared. He didn't care. She can't do that. I'm his father. She can and she did. The judge granted it based on your voicemail threats and Vanessa Cole's recorded conversations. You're considered a danger, Mr. Dalton, to Sarah and to yourself. This is insane. What's insane is you getting on a plane to Montana when every law enforcement agency in the state has been notified to watch for you. What's insane is throwing away any chance you have at custody because you can't control your temper. What's insane is choosing revenge over your son. I'm not choosing revenge. I'm choosing to be a father. Then act like one. Come back to Seattle. Work with your lawyer. Go through the proper channels. Because I promise you, if you set foot on that property, you will lose everything. The gate agent announced boarding for first class. Richard watched people line up with their carry-ons and their calm faces and their uncomplicated lives. Mr. Dalton, are you listening to me? Yeah, I hear you. Good. Now get in your car and go home. I'll pretend we never had this conversation. Richard hung up. He looked at his boarding pass. Seat 12A window. He could still get on the plane. Holloway was bluffing. There was no way every cop in Montana was watching for him. Sarah's restraining order probably hadn't even been processed yet. He could get there, get Ethan, and be gone before anyone knew it happened. Or he could end up in handcuffs. His phone buzzed. Email from an attorney he didn't recognize. Subject emergency custody hearing. He opened it. Legal documents. Pages of them. Sarah's petition for full custody. Her affidavit describing his neglect, his infidelity, his emotional abuse. Statements from her doctor about postpartum depression that Richard never noticed. Statements from neighbors who heard him yelling. Bank records showing he spent thousands on Vanessa while Sarah struggled to buy groceries. And at the bottom, a court date. 10 days from now, King County Superior Court. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. 10 days to prove he was a fit father. 10 days to undo 3 months of damage. 10 days to become someone he'd never been. The gate agent called his row. Richard grabbed his bag and walked toward the jetway. At the entrance, he stopped. The agent scanned his boarding pass and waved him through. He took one step, then another, then he stopped again. His phone buzzed. Text from Kieran. New development. Third vehicle just arrived. Local sheriff, talking to Sarah at front door. Something's happening. You need to see this. Attached was a photo. Sarah standing in the doorway of the cabin holding Ethan. Sheriff's deputy on the porch hand on his radio. Emily visible in the background. Richard zoomed in on Ethan, his son. 3 months old now, bigger than the last time Richard had held him. Wearing a blue onesie Richard didn't recognize. Sarah must have bought new clothes, with his money, for his son, without him. He turned around and walked off the jetway. The gate agent called after him. Sir, you need to board now. Richard kept walking, through the terminal, past security, out to short-term parking. He sat in his car and called Kieran. What's happening? Sheriff just left. He was there maybe 15 minutes. Sarah looks shaken. Emily's packing their cars. I think they're getting ready to move again. Where? I don't know yet, but if they leave tonight, we'll lose them. The cabin rental ends tomorrow. After that, they could go anywhere. Canada, Mexico, disappear completely. Richard's hands gripped the steering wheel. Can you stop them? Not legally. I can follow them, but if they split up, I can only track one vehicle. And if they know I'm following, they'll call the cops. So what do I do? Honestly, Mr. Dalton, you go home, you let her go. You fight this in court like a normal person instead of turning it into a chase scene. I can't do that. Then you're going to lose your son. Not because Sarah's smarter than you, though she is. Not because she planned better, though she did. You're going to lose because you're letting your ego make decisions instead of your brain. Richard hung up and threw his phone into the passenger seat. Kieran was right. Marcus was right. Holloway was right. Everyone was telling him the same thing, but they didn't understand. This wasn't about ego. This was about justice, about not letting Sarah win, about proving that he was still in control of his own life. He started the car and drove. Not home. East. Toward the mountains. Toward Montana. Toward the cabin and his son, and the confrontation he'd been building toward since the moment he'd seen that empty crib. Somewhere around Spokane, his phone died. He didn't have a charger. Didn't matter. He knew where he was going. Kieran had sent the address. Small road off Highway 89, 40 miles past Bozeman. Turn left at the broken fence. Cabin at the end of the dirt road. He drove through the night. Past midnight. Past 1. Past 2. The roads got smaller, darker, fewer cars. Fewer lights, just Richard and the highway and the rage that had been building for 3 days straight. At 4 in the morning, he pulled off at a gas station to refuel. Inside, a clerk barely looked up from his phone. Richard bought a coffee and a phone charger, plugged his phone in at a table, waited for it to power on. 53 missed calls, 29 voicemails, texts from Marcus from Holloway, from Vanessa, from his business partner, asking where the hell he was because he'd missed 3 client meetings. He ignored all of them and opened his maps. 3 hours to the cabin. He could be there by sunrise. His phone rang. Kieran, where are you? Almost there. Mr. Dalton, you need to turn around right now. What happened? Sarah's attorney got wind that you're coming. She filed an emergency motion with the local court. There's a deputy stationed at the cabin. If you show up, you're getting arrested on sight. Let them arrest me. I don't care anymore. You should care, because Sarah's attorney is arguing that you're unstable and dangerous. Every move you make proves their case. You fired your lawyer. You violated a restraining order. You're stalking your wife across state lines. You think a judge is going to give you custody after this? I just want to see my son. Then go through the proper channels. Schedule supervised visitation. Prove you're responsible. But if you show up at that cabin, the only thing you're proving is that Sarah was right to run. Richard ended the call. He sat in the gas station parking lot watching the sky turn from black to gray to pink. Sunrise. Somewhere in a cabin 3 hours away, Sarah was probably waking up, making coffee, feeding Ethan, starting her day in the new life she'd built without him. And he was sitting in the gas station in the middle of nowhere, trying to decide if he was a father or a fool. His phone buzzed, text from a number he didn't recognize. This is Emily. I'm giving you one chance to walk away. Sarah doesn't want a war. She wants peace. If you get back in your car and go home, we'll work out a custody arrangement, supervised visits, holidays, a real co-parenting plan. But if you show up here, if you force this confrontation, you'll never see Ethan again. Not because of the courts, because Sarah will disappear, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering where your son is. Your choice. Richard read the message 3 times. It was a threat, but it was also an offer. He could turn around, go home, hire a new lawyer, show up to court looking remorseful, tell the judge he made mistakes but he was ready to be better. Or he could keep driving. He put the car in gear and pulled back onto the highway, east, toward the mountains, toward his son. 2 hours later, his phone rang again. Holloway. Mr. Dalton, I know you're still driving. I know you're almost there. And I'm telling you one last time, turn around. How do you know where I am? Because I've been doing this job for 30 years, and I know how men like you think. You think you're the hero. You think you're rescuing your son from the evil wife who betrayed you. But you're not the hero, Richard. You're the reason she left. You don't know anything about my marriage. I know enough. I know you spent 6 months cheating while your wife was drowning. I know you never noticed she was falling apart because you were too busy with your mistress. I know you don't even know your own kid's middle name. How do you know that? Because Sarah told me when I interviewed her yesterday. She called me Richard, not to report you, to warn me. She said you were coming, and she was scared of what you might do. I would never hurt her. You already did. You just don't see it as hurt because you never hit her. But neglect is violence. Infidelity is violence. Making someone feel invisible in their own marriage is violence. And now you're about to commit actual violence by forcing your way onto that property. I'm going to see my son. No, you're going to get arrested. And when you're sitting in a Montana jail cell, Sarah's going to be on a plane to somewhere you'll never find her. Is that what you want? Richard's hands trembled on the wheel. What I want is my family back. Then stop destroying it. The call ended. Richard kept driving. He was 20 minutes from the cabin now. 15. 10. He turned off the highway onto a smaller road, gravel crunching under his tires, trees closing in on both sides. No other cars, no houses, just wilderness and the road and the cabin somewhere ahead. He saw the broken fence Kieran had mentioned. Turned left. The road got rougher. His car bounced over potholes and rocks. Half a mile in, he saw it. The cabin. Smoke rising from the chimney. 2 cars parked outside. A sheriff's vehicle off to the side. Richard parked 50 yards back and killed the engine. He sat there breathing hard, hands shaking, mind racing. This was it. The moment he'd been driving toward for 3 days. He could get out of the car, walk up to that door, demand to see his son. And then what? The door to the cabin opened. Sarah stepped out holding Ethan. Even from this distance, Richard could see how different she looked. Not exhausted, not defeated, strong, determined, free. Emily came out behind her, followed by a sheriff's deputy. They were leaving. Sarah put Ethan in a car seat in the back of her Honda, buckled him in carefully, kissed his forehead. Emily loaded bags into the trunk. The deputy stood watching hand near his weapon. Richard's door handle was in his hand. He could still stop this. Run up there, grab Ethan, drive away before anyone could react. Except the deputy would shoot him, or tackle him, or arrest him. And then what Ethan would watch his father get dragged away in handcuffs. That would be his first real memory of Richard. Not love, not safety. Violence and chaos and police. Sarah looked up. Directly at Richard's car. She saw him. Their eyes met across 50 yards of dirt road. Richard's hand was on the door handle. One pull and he'd be out. One sprint and he'd reach her. One moment and everything would change. Sarah's expression didn't change. She just looked at him. Calm, sad, final. Then she got in her car. Emily got in the other car. The deputy got in his vehicle. And all three cars drove away in different directions, leaving Richard sitting alone in the woods with an empty cabin in front of him and the crushing realization that he'd just lost everything. Richard sat in his car for 20 minutes after they left, staring at the empty cabin. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. Buzzed again and again. Finally he looked. Kieran. They're gone. All three vehicles went different directions. I followed Sarah's Honda, but lost her at the state line. She knew exactly what she was doing. I'm sorry, Mr. Dalton. It's over. Richard threw his phone out the window, watched it disappear into the brush. Then he got out of the car and walked toward the cabin. The door was unlocked. Inside, it was already stripped clean. No furniture, no clothes. No sign anyone had been there except for a coffee cup in the sink and a single baby sock on the floor. Richard picked up the sock. It was so small. He'd forgotten how tiny Ethan's feet were. He sat on the floor holding that sock, and for the first time in 3 days, he cried. Not angry tears, not frustrated tears, the kind of tears that come from somewhere deeper, the kind that hurt coming out. His son was gone. He stayed there until sunset, then got in his car and started driving back to Seattle. No phone, no GPS, just memory and highway signs. Somewhere around Missoula, he stopped at a convenience store and bought a burner phone with cash. The clerk gave him a suspicious look, but took his money. In the parking lot, he called Marcus. Richard, where the hell are you? The police have been looking for you for 2 days. Montana, but I'm heading back. Did you find her? Yeah. And I watched her drive away. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You didn't try to stop her. There was a sheriff there. If I'd tried anything, I'd be in jail right now. Thank God you finally showed some sense. Richard, you need to get back to Seattle immediately. We have a custody hearing in 8 days and we're in bad shape. Really bad shape. What happened? What happened is you fired me, disappeared across state lines, and violated a restraining order. Sarah's attorney is having a field day. They're arguing you're unstable, violent, and a flight risk. The judge is seriously considering supervised visitation only. Supervised? For how long? Could be months, could be years. Depends on how the hearing goes and whether you can prove you're not a danger. I'm not a danger. I'm his father. Then you need to start acting like it. No more chasing Sarah across the country. No more threatening voicemails. No more vigilante nonsense. You show up to court in a suit, you apologize to the judge, and you prove you can be the parent Ethan needs. Can you do that? Richard closed his eyes. I don't know. That's not good enough. You either commit to this or you walk away. Because halfway doesn't work in family court. The judge will see right through it. I want my son back. Then fight for him. The right way, starting now. Richard drove through the night, stopping only for gas and coffee. His mind kept replaying that moment when Sarah looked at him across the dirt road. The calm in her eyes, the finality. She wasn't running anymore. She was choosing. And she'd chosen a life without him. He crossed into Washington at 3 a.m. By sunrise, he was pulling into his driveway. The house looked different, smaller, emptier. He went inside and the silence hit him like a physical weight. On the kitchen counter, exactly where he'd left it, sat Sarah's wedding ring. He picked it up, and this time he didn't throw it. He put it in his pocket. His home phone was blinking, 47 messages. He played them while making coffee. The first 10 were from Marcus, the next 20 from Detective Holloway, 5 from his business partner, saying he was out if Richard didn't show up to the office immediately, 3 from Vanessa crying about how the media had found out about their affair and her name was all over the internet, 2 from Sarah's mother calling him every name she could think of. And the last 7 were from restricted numbers that Richard assumed were reporters. He deleted them all and called Marcus back. "I'm home. What do I need to do?" "First, you need to turn yourself into Holloway. He has questions about your trip to Montana. Answer them honestly, cooperate fully, and hope he doesn't press charges." "Charges for what?" "Stalking, harassment, violating a protective order. Take your pick. Right now you're looking at misdemeanors maybe, but if you fight him, he'll make it worse." "Fine. What else?" "Custody evaluation. Court-appointed psychologist. You'll meet with her 3 times over the next week. She'll ask about your relationship with Ethan, your marriage, your affair, everything. And Richard, you cannot lie to her. She's a professional. She'll know." "I'm not going to lie." "Good. Because if she determines you're unfit, the judge will listen. These evaluators have enormous power. Treat her with respect, and for God's sake, don't lose your temper." Richard hung up and drove to the police station. Holloway was waiting for him in the same interview room as before. "Mr. Dalton, welcome back. Have a seat." Richard sat. Holloway slid a file across the table. "That's a timeline of your movements over the past 3 days. Want to tell me if we got anything wrong?" Richard opened the file. Flight booking to Bozeman canceled. Gas station receipts from Spokane, Missoula outside Bozeman. Cell phone pings showing his location at the cabin. "How did you get all of this?" "Because when a man violates a restraining order and crosses state lines to stalk his wife, we pay attention. You want to explain what you were doing in Montana." "I wanted to see my son. You wanted to confront your wife, maybe take your son by force, maybe worse." "I didn't do anything. I sat in my car and watched them leave. That's it." "Why?" "Because there was a sheriff there. Because I'm not stupid enough to get arrested." "But you were stupid enough to drive 8 hours into another state, despite multiple warnings not to. You were stupid enough to throw away any goodwill you might have had with the court. You were stupid enough to prove every accusation your wife made about you." Richard's jaw clenched. "Are you charging me with something or not?" "Not yet. Sarah's attorney requested we hold off until after the custody hearing. She wants to use your Montana trip as evidence of your instability. And honestly, I think that's punishment enough." "So I can go." "You can go. But Mr. Dalton, let me give you some advice. I've seen hundreds of custody cases, thousands. And the ones who lose aren't always the bad parents. Sometimes they're just the angry ones, the ones who care more about winning than about what's best for their kid. Don't be that guy. What if she disappears again? Then she disappears. And eventually she'll slip up and we'll find her. But if you keep chasing her, you'll lose your son before you ever catch up. Is that what you want?" Richard didn't answer. He stood up and walked out. The next 5 days were a blur of appointments and humiliation. The custody evaluator, Dr. Linda Chang, was in her 50s with kind eyes and questions like surgical knives. "When was the last time you changed Ethan's diaper?" "I don't remember exactly." "Approximately, maybe a month ago. Sarah usually handles that." "When's his bedtime?" 7:30, I think, or 8. "You think?" "I'm not usually home at bedtime." "Where are you out working or meetings?" "With Vanessa Cole." Richard's hands clenched. "Sometimes. Did your wife know about the affair?" "Not until recently." "How do you think she felt when she found out?" "Hurt, angry." "Did you apologize?" "I didn't get the chance. She left before I could explain." Dr. Chang made a note. "What would you have explained? That it wasn't about her, that I still cared about her, that I just needed something she couldn't give me anymore." "What couldn't she give you?" "Attention, affection. She was always exhausted, always focused on the baby. I felt invisible." "So you had an affair?" "Yes." "For 6 months?" "Yes. And in those 6 months, how many times did you get up with Ethan in the middle of the night?" Silence. "How many times did you feed him?" Silence. "How many times did you ask Sarah if she needed help?" Richard's throat felt tight. "I don't know." The answer is 0, Mr. Dalton. According to Sarah's testimony, you never once volunteered to help with nighttime feedings, never offered to take a shift so she could sleep, never asked if she was okay. You were busy feeling invisible while she was drowning. Do you see the problem here? I worked long hours. I was providing for my family. Money isn't parenting, and right now I'm trying to determine if you understand that. Because if you don't, if you still think being a father means showing up with a paycheck while someone else does the actual work, then I cannot recommend custody. I love my son. I believe you do. But love isn't enough. Ethan needs a parent who shows up, who knows his bedtime and his favorite toy and his middle name. Do you know his middle name? Richard looked down. Edward. It's James! Ethan James Dalton, after Sarah's father who died 2 years ago. She told you that when she filled out the birth certificate. You were on your phone. The words hit him like punches. Everything Dr. Chang said was true. He'd been absent, selfish, more concerned with his own needs than his family's. But admitting it felt like losing, and Richard had spent his entire life learning how to win. I can do better, he said quietly. Can you, or will you? Because those are very different things. On the 6th day, Richard met with a new lawyer. Jennifer Park was younger than Marcus Sharper and had a reputation for winning impossible cases. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Dalton. Your case is a disaster. The Montana trip alone is enough to sink you. Add in the affair, the emotional neglect, the threatening voicemails, and you're looking at supervised visitation at best. So what do? You take responsibility, no excuses, no blaming Sarah. You stand up in court and tell the judge you failed as a husband and a father, but you're committed to doing better. You outline a specific plan for how you'll be involved in Ethan's life, parenting classes, therapy, whatever it takes. And if the judge doesn't believe me, then you lose. But if you go in there defensive and angry, you'll definitely lose. This is your one shot to show you're capable of change. Don't waste it. The custody hearing was on a Tuesday morning. Richard wore his best suit and arrived 30 minutes early. The courthouse was old with high ceilings and the smell of floor polish and anxiety. He sat on a bench outside the courtroom, watching other families go in and come out. Some crying, some relieved. All of them broken in different ways. At 9:45, Jennifer found him. Sarah's here. She's in the courtroom with her attorney and Emily Thorne. I need to warn you, she looks good, calm, together, like someone who's moved on. Where's Ethan? With a court-appointed monitor, he's in a private room. If the judge allows it, you might get to see him after the hearing. Might. Nothing is guaranteed, Richard. Remember that. They walked into the courtroom together. Richard saw Sarah immediately. She was sitting at the plaintiff's table wearing a simple blue dress, hair pulled back, no makeup, except a little around her eyes to hide the fact that she'd probably been crying. Emily sat behind her, protective and alert. Sarah didn't look at Richard. Not once. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, and everyone stood. She was in her 60s, gray hair, reading glasses on a chain, the expression of someone who'd heard every lie and excuse 1,000 times. Be seated. We're here for emergency custody determination in the matter of Dalton versus Dalton. Counsel, we have 90 minutes. Make them count. Sarah's attorney went first. Rebecca Winters was everything Richard expected. Polished, prepared, and ruthless. Your Honor, my client fled her marriage not out of spite, but out of survival. For 3 months, she was the sole caregiver to an infant, while her husband conducted an affair. She suffered from postpartum depression that went undiagnosed and untreated because her husband never noticed. She requested help repeatedly and was ignored. Finally, when she discovered concrete evidence of Mr. Dalton's infidelity, she made the difficult decision to protect herself and her son by leaving. And the $200,000 she took, Judge Morrison asked, funds from a joint account that she was legally entitled to access. She used that money to secure housing and provide for Ethan's needs. Every penny is documented and accounted for. What about the identity change? A safety precaution. My client was genuinely afraid of how Mr. Dalton would react, and her fears were justified. Within days of her leaving, he violated a restraining order, stalked her across state lines, and attempted to force a confrontation at her residence. Jennifer stood. Your Honor, Mr. Dalton drove to Montana to see his son. Not to harm anyone, not to commit a crime. He sat in his car and left when he realized the situation was being monitored by law enforcement. That's not stalking. That's a father trying to connect with his child. A father who violated a protective order, Rebecca countered. A father who left threatening voicemails. A father who, according to our custody evaluator's report, cannot name his own son's middle name, bedtime, or favorite food. This is not a man prepared to parent. This is a man who views his child as property. Judge Morrison looked at Richard. "Mr. Dalton, stand up." Richard stood heart-pounding. "I've read Dr. Chang's evaluation. I've read the police reports. I've listened to your voicemail. Now I want to hear from you directly. Why should I grant you custody of a child you barely know?" Richard's mind went blank. Every prepared speech, every carefully crafted answer disappeared. All he could think about was that sock in the cabin, that tiny blue sock that was all he had left of his son. "I don't have a good answer, Your Honor. Everything Ms. Winters said is true. I was a terrible husband. I'm a stranger to my son. I made every wrong choice I could make, but I'm standing here asking for another chance because I know I can be better. Not for me, for Ethan. He deserves a father who shows up, who knows his bedtime and his middle name and his favorite toy, and I want to be that father. I just need the opportunity to try. The opportunity to try is a privilege you earn, Mr. Dalton, not a right you're granted. What have you done in the past week to earn that privilege?" "I enrolled in parenting classes. I started therapy. I read 3 books on infant development. I know it's not enough. I know it doesn't undo 3 months of absence. But it's a start." Judge Morrison looked at Sarah. "Ms. Dalton, you've been quiet. What do you want?" Sarah stood slowly. Her voice was steady but soft. "I want Ethan to be safe. I want him to grow up knowing he's loved. And I want Richard to understand that being a father isn't about control or ownership. It's about sacrifice. If he can learn that, if he can prove he's willing to put Ethan's needs above his own, then I'm open to shared custody. But not yet. Not until I know he's changed." "How long?" 6 months. Supervised visitation only. Weekly sessions with Ethan and a monitor. Continued therapy. Proof of completion for parenting classes. After 6 months, we reevaluate." Judge Morrison nodded. "Mr. Dalton, that's more than generous considering your behavior. What do you say?" Richard looked at Sarah, really looked at her. For the first time in months, he saw her clearly, not as his wife, not as the woman who left him, but as a mother protecting her child from a man who'd proven he couldn't be trusted. "I accept." "Good. Here's my order. Supervised visitation every Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. at a court-approved facility. Mr. Dalton will complete a 12-week parenting course and provide proof of attendance. Individual therapy twice a month with progress reports submitted to this court. No contact with Ms. Dalton outside of visitation arrangements. No social media posts about the case or the child. 1 violation and visitation is suspended. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Ms. Dalton, do you agree to these terms?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Then we're adjourned. Mr. Dalton, your first visitation is this Sunday. Don't be late." The gavel came down. Richard stood there as the courtroom emptied. Jennifer packed her briefcase. Sarah left with Rebecca and Emily without looking back. The bailiff started turning off lights, and Richard realized he'd just agreed to see his son for 2 hours a week. For 6 months, maybe longer. He'd lost. But somehow for the first time in days, he felt like maybe he could still win. Not the custody battle, something more important. The chance to actually be a father. Sunday came faster than Richard expected. He woke up at 6, even though the visitation wasn't until 2. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just paced his empty house rehearsing what he'd say to a 4-month-old baby who wouldn't understand a word. At noon he showered and changed clothes 3 times. Too formal looked like he was trying too hard. Too casual looked like he didn't care. He settled on jeans and a button-down shirt, then left an hour early because sitting in the house was making him crazy. The supervised visitation center was in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a tax preparation office. Bright yellow walls, toys scattered everywhere. A woman at the front desk who smiled too much and talked too loud. "You must be Richard. I'm Monica. I'll be supervising today. Have you done supervised visits before?" "No." "Okay, so here's how it works. You'll have 2 hours with Ethan in the playroom." I'll be present the entire time taking notes. You can play with him, feed him if he's hungry, change him if needed. What you can't do is take photos, make phone calls, or discuss the custody case. Any questions? Is Sarah here? She dropped Ethan off 15 minutes ago. She'll be back at 4 to pick him up. You won't see her. That's part of the order. Monica led him to a small room with foam mats on the floor and a baby swing in the corner. And there, sitting in a bouncer seat, was Ethan. Richard's breath caught. His son had grown. Not just bigger, but different. More alert. More present. Ethan looked up when Richard walked in, eyes wide and curious. "Hey, buddy!" Richard said, his voice cracking. "It's me! It's Dad!" Ethan stared at him. No recognition, no smile, just the blank gaze of a baby looking at a stranger. Richard sat on the floor next to the bouncer. "I know you don't remember me. I know I haven't been around, but I'm here now. I'm going to be here every week, I promise." Monica sat in the corner with a clipboard. "You can pick him up if you want." Richard reached for Ethan, hands shaking. The baby felt heavier than he remembered, solid, real. Richard held him carefully like he might break. Ethan immediately started fussing. "It's okay," Monica said. "He doesn't know you yet. Try talking to him. Babies respond to voices." Richard tried. He told Ethan about his week, about the parenting class where he was the only man in a room full of mothers who looked at him like he was contaminated. About therapy where Dr. Harrison asked questions that made Richard want to walk out. About the empty house and the silence and how much he missed hearing a baby cry in the middle of the night. Ethan kept fussing, then crying, then screaming. "Maybe try the swing," Monica suggested. Richard put Ethan in the swing and turned it on. The crying got worse. He tried a pacifier. Ethan spit it out. Tried a bottle. Ethan turned his head away. "I don't know what he wants," Richard said, frustration building. "He wants his mom," Monica said gently. "You're new to him. It takes time." Time. Richard had 2 hours a week. That was it. 2 hours to undo 3 months of absence. 2 hours to become someone his son recognized. 2 hours that felt like both forever and nowhere near enough. By the end of the visit, Ethan had cried for 45 minutes straight. Richard's shirt was soaked with spit up. His arms ached from holding a baby who didn't want to be held. And when 4 o'clock came, he'd never been more relieved and more devastated at the same time. Monica took Ethan back. "Sarah's in the parking lot. You need to leave through the side exit so you don't cross paths." Richard walked to his car, feeling like he'd failed a test he didn't know how to study for. His phone buzzed. Text from Jennifer. "How did it go?" He didn't know how to answer that, so he just wrote, "He cried the whole time." "That's normal. Keep showing up. It gets easier." But it didn't get easier. The second visit was worse than the first. Ethan cried even harder, like he knew Richard was coming and dreaded it. The third visit, Ethan wouldn't even look at him. Just kept turning his face toward the door, like he was waiting for Sarah to rescue him. Richard started having nightmares. Dreams where he was chasing Ethan through empty rooms, always one step behind, never able to catch up. He'd wake up sweating, reaching for a child who wasn't there. Therapy with Dr. Harrison wasn't helping. "You're trying to force a connection," Dr. Harrison said during their 5th session. "You can't make a baby love you. You have to earn it. Slowly. Patiently." "I don't have time for slowly. I get 2 hours a week." "Then you make those 2 hours count. Not by trying to be perfect, by just being present. Stop performing and start connecting." "I don't know how." "That's the problem, Richard. You've spent your whole life performing. The successful businessman, the charming husband, the confident lover. But you never learned how to just be a person, flawed, uncertain, real. Being real doesn't pay the mortgage. No. But it builds relationships. And right now you need a relationship with your son more than you need anything else." The 4th visit, Richard tried something different. Instead of trying to make Ethan stop crying, he just sat there and let him cry. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't panic. Just held his son and said, I know you're upset. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Ethan cried for 20 minutes, then 15, then 10, and then for about 30 seconds he stopped and looked at Richard. Really looked at him, like he was trying to figure out who this person was. It wasn't much, but it was something. Monica noticed. "That's progress. He's starting to recognize you." "How can you tell?" Because he stopped fighting, even for just a moment. That's trust beginning to form. Richard started reading to Ethan during visits, baby books with simple pictures and rhymes. Ethan didn't understand the words, but he seemed to like the sound of Richard's voice. Sometimes he'd grab at the pages. Sometimes he'd just watch Richard's face while he read. Week 6. Ethan smiled, not at Richard, at a stuffed elephant. But Richard was holding the elephant, so it counted. Week 8. Ethan fell asleep in Richard's arms. Monica said that was huge. Babies only sleep when they feel safe. Week 10. Richard showed up, and Ethan didn't cry, just looked at him with those big eyes and reached out his hand. Richard took the tiny fingers in his and felt something crack open inside his chest. This was his son, not his possession, not his property, his son. A whole separate person with thoughts and feelings and needs that had nothing to do with Richard's ego or pride or need to win. The parenting classes were humbling in ways Richard didn't expect. The instructor, a woman named Patricia, who'd raised 4 kids and fostered 12 more, didn't care about Richard's excuses or explanations. "You want to be a good father," she said during week 3. "Stop talking about what you're going to do and start doing it. Nobody cares about your intentions. Your kid cares about your actions." Richard learned how to change a diaper properly, how to test bottle temperature, how to read baby cues for hunger, tiredness, discomfort. Things Sarah had been doing alone for months while he was busy feeling invisible. He learned about developmental milestones, how babies Ethan's age were learning to roll over to track objects with their eyes to respond to familiar voices. All things Ethan was doing with Sarah that Richard was missing. He learned about postpartum depression, about how 1 in 7 new mothers experience it, about the symptoms, exhaustion, sadness, feeling overwhelmed, withdrawing from activities, difficulty bonding with the baby. Every single thing Sarah had shown and Richard had ignored. Patricia didn't sugarcoat it. "Your wife was drowning and you were on a yacht with your girlfriend. That's the truth. Own it or don't bother showing up next week." Richard owned it. Started keeping a journal his therapist suggested. Writing down everything he'd done wrong, everything he'd missed, everything he wished he could take back. The list got longer every day. 3 months into supervised visitation, Richard got a phone call from Rebecca Winters. "Mr. Dalton's Sarah would like to discuss the possibility of unsupervised visits." Richard's heart jumped. "Really?" "She's been reviewing Monica's reports. Your attendance has been perfect. Your interactions with Ethan have improved significantly, and Monica believes you're genuinely committed to being present." "I am?" "Good. Because Sarah wants to propose a trial period. 1 unsupervised visit per week, 4 hours instead of 2. In your home, with the understanding that if there are any issues we revert back to, supervised immediately." "When?" "This Sunday. Sarah will drop Ethan off at your house at 10 a.m. and pick him up at 2 p.m. She wants to see where her son will be spending time. Make sure it's safe." Richard spent the next 3 days baby-proofing his house. Outlet covers, cabinet locks, gates on the stairs. He converted his home office into a nursery, bought a crib, a changing table, baby monitors, toys, spent $2,000 at Babies R Us and didn't care. Sarah arrived exactly at 10 on Sunday. Richard opened the door and saw her for the first time in 3 months. She looked different, stronger, hair shorter, face calmer. "Hi," he said. "Hi." She carried Ethan in a car seat, a diaper bag over her shoulder. "Can I come in?" "Of course." Sarah walked through the house slowly, checking everything. The outlet covers, the locked cabinets, the nursery. She spent 5 minutes in there looking at the crib Richard had assembled himself, using YouTube videos and sheer determination. "You did all this?" she asked. "Yeah, I wanted him to have his own space here." Sarah touched the mobile hanging over the crib. Little stars and moons. "This was in his nursery at our old house. I kept it, kept everything, in case he ever came back." She turned to look at him. "Richard, he didn't leave. We're not coming back. You understand that, right?" "I know. This isn't about us getting back together. This is about you being a father to Ethan. That's all. That's all I want." Sarah studied his face like she was trying to determine if he was lying. Finally, she nodded. Okay, his schedule is in the diaper bag. Feeding times, nap times, everything. He's been a little fussy lately, might be teething. There's gel in the bag if he needs it. Got it. I'll be back at 2. Call me if there are any problems. She started to leave, then stopped. Richard, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for Ethan. Because every child deserves to know their father. But if you hurt him, if you disappear on him the way you disappeared on us, I will make sure you never see him again. Are we clear? We're clear. Sarah left. Richard was alone with his son for the first time ever. No Monica, no supervision, just the two of them. Ethan looked up at him from the car seat and smiled. Richard spent the next 4 hours doing exactly what the schedule said. Bottle at 10:30, tummy time at 11, diaper change at 11:45, nap at noon. He sat next to the crib while Ethan slept, just watching him breathe, terrified he'd stop. When Ethan woke up at 1:15, Richard changed him again and then just held him. Walked around the house talking about nothing. Showed him the backyard where they could play when he got bigger. The kitchen where Richard would teach him to make pancakes someday. The living room where they'd watch cartoons together. Ethan grabbed Richard's finger and held on tight. At 2 o'clock exactly, Sarah knocked. Richard opened the door, holding Ethan, who was awake and content. Sarah's eyes widened slightly. He looks happy. We had a good morning. Any problems? None. He ate well, slept for about an hour. No fussing. Sarah took Ethan from Richard's arms. The baby immediately turned and reached back toward Richard. Not frantically, just a little hand extended like he wasn't quite ready to leave yet. Sarah saw it. He's warming up to you. I hope so. She buckled Ethan into his car seat, then turned back to Richard. Same time next week. I'll be here. Sarah started toward her car, then stopped. Richard, I read Monica's reports, all of them, and I talked to Dr. Chang about your progress. They both said the same thing. You're trying, really trying. I just wanted you to know I see that. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You've got a long way to go, but you're moving in the right direction. She drove away. Richard stood in the doorway long after her car disappeared, replaying those 4 hours in his mind. How natural it had felt. How right. The weekly visits became routine, then comfortable. Then something Richard looked forward to more than anything else in his life. He started taking photos of Ethan and putting them in an album. Started marking milestones. First time Ethan rolled over at Richard's house. First time he laughed at something Richard did. First time he reached for Richard when Sarah arrived to pick him up. 6 months after the custody hearing, they went back to court. Judge Morrison reviewed the reports, Monica's notes, Dr. Chang's updated evaluation, Richard's completed parenting course certificate, 6 months of perfect attendance at therapy. Ms. Dalton, Judge Morrison said, what are you recommending? Sarah stood. Joint custody, week on, week off, with the understanding that communication between us stays focused on Ethan's needs and nothing else. Mr. Dalton, do you agree to those terms? Richard looked at Sarah. She'd given him a second chance he didn't deserve. A path back to his son, when she could have shut him out forever. And she'd done it not because she forgave him, but because she believed children needed both parents when both parents were willing to show up. I agree, Richard said. Judge Morrison signed the order. Joint custody, equal time, a real chance to be a father. Outside the courthouse, Sarah stopped him. Richard, I need to say something. Okay. What you did to me, to us, it broke something that can't be fixed. I'll never trust you as a husband. I'll never forgive the affair or the lies or the way you made me feel invisible. But as a father, you've proven you can change. You've shown up. You've done the work. And Ethan deserves that version of you. I know I can't fix what I broke between us, but I can be the father he needs. I promise you that. Don't promise me. Promise him. Every single day. Sarah walked away. Richard stood there watching her go, understanding finally that some things couldn't be undone, some mistakes couldn't be erased. But new beginnings were possible if you were willing to become someone different than who you were. 2 years later, Richard sat in the backyard of his house, watching Ethan toddle around chasing a ball. The boy was 2.5 now, talking in sentences, running everywhere, laughing at everything. Sarah had remarried, a teacher named David who treated Ethan like his own. Richard had met him during a custody exchange and shook his hand because that's what grown men did when they both loved the same child. Vanessa had moved to California. Richard hadn't spoken to her since the day Sarah left. She was engaged now, posted photos on social media of her perfect new life. Richard didn't follow her anymore. His business had recovered, not because Richard worked harder, but because he worked smarter. Left the office at 5, never missed a custody day, built his schedule around Ethan instead of building Ethan around his schedule. Therapy had taught him that success wasn't about winning. It was about showing up, being present, choosing the people who mattered over the things that didn't. Ethan ran over and climbed into Richard's lap. "Daddy pushed me on swing." "You got it, buddy." Richard carried his son to the swing set he'd built himself last summer. Pushed him gently, listening to the squeals of laughter that used to keep him awake at night, but now were the best sound in the world. His phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. "Running 10 minutes late for pickup, traffic." Richard texted back, "No problem. Take your time." He pushed Ethan higher. The boy threw his head back, fearless and free, trusting completely that his father wouldn't let him fall. And Richard realized that this right here was what winning actually looked like. Not a courtroom victory, not getting his wife back, not proving he was right, just a father and his son on a Sunday afternoon making memories that mattered. He'd lost his marriage, lost his money, lost the life he thought he wanted. But he'd found something better, something real. He'd found his way back to being a father. And this time he wasn't going to disappear.